Hi guys, today I've got a tutorial where we're going to be looking at using poetry to inspire as a catalyst for paintings. When you're painting from the imagination, you can use all sorts of things for inspiration, whether it be songs, poetry, stories, and essentially, a lot of art is all about storytelling in like a visual form. So I'm just going to run you through a painting I did. This is my finished piece that we'll be looking at today, and I'll show you from start to finish how I did this. It's called Jerusalem. This is the book of poetry that I was using that inspired me, and one poem in particular. But you could use anything, like it could be a lyric from a song, like I said before, or another verse or prose that you have, and I just have to find it. It's called Jerusalem. This is actually essentially mystical poetry. It's called Love Poems from God, and it's by an author, a translator called Daniel Ladinsky. So these are old mystics from centuries ago, from the east and the west. So people like Rumi and Hafez, if you've ever heard of them, and they write really wonderfully profound things about God. But I'm just going to read you the last verses just so you know where my thoughts were when I was painting this picture. So the last verse, the last stanza says, "Once we had 4 legs and tails, so useful to balance our raid into heaven, and I found them again. I am a swimming galaxy tonight. Angels prowl around me, hoping I will toss them a fresh piece of light. Here, dears, here, my sack is full. The universe rents space from me, and oceans are drawn from my well. How can that be? For I can touch Jerusalem, while my other hand tastes the beauty of the Rhine. Yes, I can kiss Jerusalem, while my mouth tastes the wonders of the Rhine." And I was so captivated by that idea, that juxtaposition of Jerusalem and the Rhine. To me, it really represents that sort of idea that we transcend our lives on this earth, that we're, spiritual beings having this physical experience here, and that everything's sacred, and that, really our lives are a testament to that sort of marriage of the spirit and the physical, the tangible. So that's where I was coming from, and I start my paintings off and I ruminate over them, and I do a few little sketches and preliminary sketches in my journal that are really unedited and very loose and free, just to get my ideas flowing. And then once I've done that, if I like the idea enough, I take it into a painting form. So that's what I've done here. So I'm just going to show you, it's not really a limited palette, because I was really quite caught up with that idea of, this transcendent person in the clouds, that we've transcended all of that we're, in the image of God. And so I really use all the spectrums of the reds. So especially this one's magenta, quinachrome magenta. It's quite translucent, so you can actually use it for glazing, which means that you can add some water or some retarder medium to it, and it can go over the top of the other colours, and it'll give it sort of like a magenta-y glaze. But the way I paint, as you'll see, is often like with a dry brush, so it's just sort of that scrubbing technique. So I use magenta, alizarin, there's scarlet, so that's a very orangey red, which lends itself to these beautiful sort of orangey colours in through here, and peach colours. Cadmium yellow, that's a warm yellow that mixes really well with all of the reds. And the same deal, it's really just the whole range of, primary colours, really. So I've got phthalo blue, which is a yellow-based blue, so it makes a nice, rich kind of emeraldy green. And then ultramarine, so that's a more purpley colour. That mixes a beautiful colour. And because I cheated a little bit, I've got these purples that are pre-mixed. Well, this isn't. This is a beautiful colour for using as, you know, you can use as part of your darks. It's dioxane purple. I think I've got the pronunciation right. And I've got this violet as well. Sometimes I'm a bit lazy. Anyway, so those are my colours that I used, and also used a bit of black because it's quite heavily outlined, as you can see here. So I wanted to make it, yeah, I was kind of having fun with that sort of idea of using a lot of black. I'm using a lot more black lately, so lots of black and white. The other thing I wanted to mention as well, when you're working with using story or poetry in your paintings as inspiration, it's really important. Like, a poem hasn't got a fixed meaning. So in other words, the reader gives a lot to the interpretation. So every interpretation is going to be different. What you get out of the same poem will be different to what I might get out of it. So, you know, just read it in a really relaxed state, and whatever sort of things jump out at you, those are the ones you want to kind of hone in on, and just, like I say, leave it really loose and let it speak to you for itself, and there's no literal meanings to be had, because we're really drawing from our own experience when we come into the world of poetry. They're essentially written pictures painted with language is what they essentially are. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the painting part of it, and I'll run through that with you, and just, yeah, encourage you. Just songs, like I say, song lyrics or poetry books, and let me know in the comments how you went, if you've done this tutorial alongside me, and I hope you enjoy. I'll see you at the other end. Bye. So here I am sketching in the initial composition using black paint. I don't always start my paintings like this, but in this one I want to keep a lot of the black lines later. Painters like Vincent van Gogh use black outline, and I always think it adds to the colour. It makes things stand out and creates a strong composition. And just putting down the initial underpainting for the sky. So when you're doing this, the colours that you lay down, it's quite layered, like quite a few layers will go into this, but the initial colours that you put down sort of come through in the end anyway, so it all just adds a lot more depth the more layers you do. And I didn't mention it in the intro, but I actually think it's a really good thing, or a very useful thing anyway, to get references when you're doing paintings like this. So when you have this image in your mind, it's nice to have something to refer to, just to keep you on track. So I think I googled a couple of sunset pictures, and obviously I wanted to get a picture of Jerusalem and the Rhine, just to give me that idea, because I wanted to have those two landscapes merging in the bottom. And you can, and especially with the sunset as well, some of those colours, you can kind of use them as a guide. So Google is our best friend. Spending a bit of time doing the detail in the landscape because I want it to be recognisable, but however with both of them really I wanted to get the idea of it, so they're not exact replicas, they're quite abstracted down, but still, so I wanted to mainly get the temple in, so that could be easily recognised. You can see here I'm scrubbing out the legs, changing the position, because I felt I wanted to sort of get that idea that she was floating in the sky, so almost like she's swimming, so that there's that sort of movement. and trying to work on the painting quite holistically so that the colours, there's a harmony, so the colours in the sky are also in the landscape and in the clothes. I think for my figure reference I used, I found a vintage dancer picture, which was, it was a lovely little reference, sort of a whimsical pose. Here I'm just putting more detail in the sky, getting those pops of colour, the blue coming through. And in the sky I'm using that dry brush technique that I spoke of earlier. So it's actually called scumbling, and it works really well for doing clouds. So I tend to sort of like dab my brush on a cloth and then put it onto the canvas, almost sort of like it's like baby's breath, almost like an airbrush quality. So you get those subtle variations, and it's also very good when you're doing portraits, when you're just wanting to get some real subtle shadows or some subtle highlights. And you can see here I'm putting the detail in the river, the Rhine below. So water is very interesting on sunset, or sunrise. Whatever is in the sky is always reflected in the water, and then you get the reflections around it as well. So water is a very interesting sort of mirror. You can see that the scumbling I'm doing is quite light and subtle. I don't know if you can see here, I've got my phone, so I'm using my phone as a reference for even the face. So just that sort of, there's some brilliant ones, like if you Google drawing references or painting references, there's some really good ones of faces, so you can get different angles and things like that, and it's just great to practice with as well. And then, you know, you'll become practiced at it, and then it'll sort of be part of your toolkit that you can use in your images when you're creating your when you're putting your ideas down. You've already got an idea of how to communicate that visually. So it's almost like Frankenstein's monster, getting lots and lots of references from different places and putting them together in your own way. So my plan is to use, make the robe look really sort of flowy. So I'm wanting to get the folds in nicely. And there's different ways you can go about it. Like you can start off with your darks and just like even looking at how fabric folds and the highlights on it. So here I've gone really dramatic with the darks, and then I'll go over that again because I wanted to make it look really sort of definite that it's a flowy kind of skirt. And changing the position of the legs. So with acrylic paint, with oil paint, I think you would wipe it off because it takes a long time to dry. But with acrylic paint, the drying time is so short that really you can just let things dry and then go over them again. And I do this a lot in my paintings because they kind of evolve, and it's very much problem solving. Like when you're looking at your artwork, you're constantly problem solving. You're working out, your composition and what looks right, and it's important not to get too fussy with it. When you start to get worried or you feel yourself getting a bit anxious with it, it's good to leave it and look at it with fresh eyes, which I think I did here. It's really good to kind of step back and spend some time just looking at it and look at where your eye is going. And I don't know if you can see my face at the side. I'm squinting my eyes a lot, and I do that a lot. Just in some ways, when you squint, you kind of just get like this hazy view of it, and it makes you see the composition for what it is, and look at it more holistically rather than looking at the details so much, getting caught up with them. So it's important to look at the whole picture, not just the one or two details, and try and work on it as much as you can as a whole. I chose to put roses on the robe, and they give that sort of ethereal quality. Roses are, so beautiful and so fleeting, and all the flowers are so symbolic for me. Because everything's so rich with meaning. Finishing off the robe. I think I've found it hard to work out what colours I wanted to choose for the clothing, but I think I'm glad that I chose the red, because I feel like I wanted it to not be that contrasting colour so much, because I think the blues are the ones that sort of really stand out, so I didn't want to take away from that. So there it is, my finished painting, and it's called Jerusalem. Thanks for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Alyssa Canich Art. And if you have any questions, feel free, and God bless, and have a beautiful day, and keep creating. Bye.